Becca Clark.
And I'm Curran O'Donoghue. And this is CCN News for you. Our top story. Now in its fourth week, the Occupy Wall Street protest shows no signs of slowing. Their website says that they are a leaderless resistance movement with people of many colors, genders, and political persuasions. The one thing we all have in common is that we are the 99% that will no longer tolerate the greed and corruption of the 1%. We are using the revolutionary Arab Spring tactic to achieve our ends and encourage the use of nonviolence to maximize the safety of all participants. Apparently fed up with the faith laying on America's major banking institutions during the nation's current economic situation, New Yorkers have decided to say something. The protest was actually incited by the Canadian organization Adbusters in a July 13 statement that said, "On September 17th, flood into Lower Manhattan, set up tents, kitchens, peaceful barricades, and occupy Wall Street." The statement on their website also calls for democracy, not corporatocracy, and refers to Wall Street as the financial Gomorrah of America, a reference, of course, to the biblical city destroyed by God for its sinful population. On the first of the month, the protesters moved to occupy the Brooklyn Bridge. Arrests soon followed. Police say they made the arrests because they were inhibiting the flow of traffic. The protesters countered, saying the police deliberately allowed them to walk onto the vehicle lanes before being arrested. Those protesters on the sidewalks were not arrested. By 2:20 a.m., over 700 protesters had been arrested. One can't help but wonder, with all the civil unrest the world over, if those in positions of power are starting to listen to those who express distaste with their respective systems of governance, be they political or economic. The current occupation is remnant of filmmaker Michael Moore's 2009 film Capitalism, a Love Story, wherein he single-handedly protests the Wall Street banks and, with a megaphone and roll of yellow police line, wraps up one of the major financial institutions. It seems as though the 99% will continue to speak. Their website, OccupyWallStreet.org, has an agenda with events scheduled indefinitely, waiting perhaps for some sort of sign of repentance from the banks. Another organization even planned an art show, inspired by the protest, to be held at the J.P. Morgan building called No Comment. The show is said to concern the current paradigm shift of human expression and the emerging social condition. A sister protest is currently being held in Boston, specifically protesting Bank of America's announcement at its getting rid of some 30,000 jobs in the coming year. Multiple other similar protests have occurred and are planned around the United States. In Boston so far, over 100 people have been arrested. Again, continuing updates can be found on the website OccupyWallStreet.org, including a live video stream. Last month, Clark held an international summit called Informed Activism on the subjects of armed conflict, scarce resources, and Congo. An estimated 1,000 people were in attendance, mostly students from Clark and around New England, some from as far away as California and even the UK. The summit started off on the morning of the 24th with introductions by Deborah Dwork of the Strassler Center for Holocaust and Genocide Studies, and Clark President David Angel. The speaker to deliver the keynote address was Shushu Namagabe, a Congolese activist from the area of southern Kivu of the Democratic Republic of Congo, and head and founder of the Association of Women Journalists. Ms. Namagabe spoke about the conflict and specifically the effects of rape and its use as a weapon in the ongoing struggle. She detailed the violence of the past few decades in the region and detailed ways forward for activists. After her presentation, the first of two panels of experts took the stage. The panel included George Weiss, the founder and CEO of Radio La Benevolencia, an organization which uses soap operas and other programs, including grassroots activism, to educate and help would-be perpetrators resist the psychology of mass crimes. Also on the panel was a representative from the U.S. Agency for International Development, Chloe Schwenke, who discussed what the U.S. government was doing to assist the Congolese. The second panel was much more fiery than the first, beginning with Friends of the Congo representative Kambale Musavuli, a U.S. citizen born in the DRC, and very much in its support of its recovery. On his left was Fidel Bamfidelemba of the Enough Project, who called bluff on Ms. Schwenke and U.S. foreign policy, as well as Rwandan President Paul Kagame. He said of the U.S.'s actions that they're not enough, and speaking on Rwanda with stronger terms. Representatives from Jewish World Watch and the U.S. State Department also spoke. Ending the first portion of the conference was Professor Salim Ali of the University of Vermont, who explained his views on conflict minerals and urged all present to not be afraid of complexity and to find the actual roots of the problems at hand. In the afternoon, breakout sessions were held in smaller discussion groups on subjects like diamond smuggling, commodity chains, sexual violence, and international law, each featuring presenters from NGOs or universities. The next day included workshops on campaigning and organizing support against the conflict in Congo, as well as a meet and greet with the NGO representatives. The summit was sponsored for the Strassler Center for Holocaust and Genocide Studies at Clark and Jewish World Watch. The discussions have been long, and the effort Hannah Yukon, Andy Renard, and Joseph Carpenter have put into the project has been immense. However, after a full semester of imagining and reimagining, Clark University is about to implement the entirely student-led Rainbow Initiative. What is the Rainbow Initiative? Student leader Andy Renard has this to say.
Right now the plan is to sort of build a plaque that says this is the acceptance campaign. And every couple of months change out what the focus is. So, for instance, the next couple of months will be a rainbow staircase going up to the Asher Suite. And then after that, maybe Cusper will do something that we can put up on the window in the second floor landing of the UC. And after that, BSU will do a display. So it's this ever-evolving, ever-changing sort of, I don't want to say living monument, because living monument sounds very kind of corny, but an ever-changing and ever-evolving monument to real issues that exist in the world.
To Renard and the other students involved with the project, the Rainbow Initiative is more than just a monument to equality. It is an interactive and fluid venture that will bring together students of all races, genders, classes, religions, orientations, and ethnicities, and ideally build a greater sense of community on Clark's campus. Renard mentioned that the initiative is not just about equality for historically marginalized groups.
Even something as different as a club sport, for instance, would be welcomed in this. My perception of things is that there's a huge tendency for members of an oppressed group or a violated group to look at members of that they don't perceive as belonging to their group and say, you know, you can't help us or you don't have a voice here. And so by trying to incorporate as many different types of clubs as we can into all these initiatives, we're hoping to try to circumvent that and get people to realize that you don't have to be oppressed to want oppression to end.
Renard voiced the opinion that the Rainbow Initiative is a great project for any college campus, but he thinks that it is especially pertinent to Clark University, as the university makes a special effort to create a diverse atmosphere and build strong communities. He hoped that in 5 years' time, the initiative will continue to thrive and will be an integral part of the Clark community. He also expressed his wish for the initiative to promote awareness of current issues, citing a number of different scenarios that could potentially be an equality issue 5 years from now.
This year's Student Council debates were held on September 27th. 14 candidates running for various positions debated on issues such as student involvement and budget allocations. However, while there were many candidates, only the first-year representative position was in dispute, and many positions had no candidates running at all. A recurring issue was the problem of getting students more involved with Student Council, as well as club events in general. Candidates frequently cited solutions such as using open forums, flyers, and Facebook as ways to improve campus communication, as well as to find out what students really want. In particular, the candidate for junior class representative, Andrew Shushu, spoke about how the apathetic attitude of the student body prevents students from voicing their opinions and inciting change.
The major problem that I see here isn't the student council. The student council's got a good structure, we're doing good things here. I want to see more political action on campus. We got, more people here on stage than we do in the crowd. I think it's completely ridiculous. I want to see more, action from the voters. That's the vote. Democracy is driven by participation, and we don't have that here. So I want to see people take more initiative on campus. I think it's for your student government to represent you. You have to put some action into it. You put some new thoughts in it. Present your ideas, and people can blame you. What student council doing for us? You have to think about what can you do for yourself. How can you help bring about the changes that you want to see? If you don't tell anybody, if you don't put it out there, you're not going to get those changes made. So I think the problem isn't necessarily with student council. It's that I'm going to say here, there's a problem with apathetic presence on campus where people aren't necessarily putting out. We all have big character, big things that we want to see change. But if we don't push that into action, we're not going to see it change. We can sit around and wait and hope for it. But if we don't do anything to bring about the change we want, we're not going to see that. And that's the biggest problem.
When asked what they would do with the $150,000 budget, the $150,000 in the budget surplus, candidates cited ideas such as increasing funding for underfunded clubs, campus beautification, a gazebo in the Zen garden, as well as simply asking students what they think should be done with the money. When asked what she would do if a small and inactive club had a large budget allocation, Dodd Hall representative candidate Kate Lally argued for allowing the club to exist while giving the club opportunities to share its surplus with other clubs.
Because I know that there are a lot of clubs out there that may seem small, but to the people who are running them, the people that started them, they're very big, and they have very big dreams for those clubs. And in order for those dreams to come true, they need a budget. And I think as members of the Clark community, we should take those dreams into account and make sure that they have the finance that they need to get things done. It doesn't mean they should have surplus, but it should mean that they should be taken seriously and be thought of.
Afterwards, a candidate who was a former finance committee member pointed out that if the club is inactive, then the money would be better spent with one of the many clubs that are active but underfunded. When asked by an audience member what he felt student council's strongest successes were, the candidate for RLH House Representative, Andy Renard, listed several student council initiatives, as well as noting his hopes for future successes.
We, just in the past couple months, we've set aside $10,000 for the improvement of Atwood, which, for those of you who don't know, Atwood was in desperate need of improved lighting, curtains, and a lot of the electrics that are working, and the lights and sounds aren't working properly. So it needed all the improvements. So we've done that. Last year, the Finance Committee worked really hard to publish breakdowns of the student activities, so exactly dollar by dollar how your student activities fee was getting spent, which was a tremendous amount of work. We've also started a committee I'm working on starting a acceptance initiative on campus, which is getting different clubs involved with creating sort of moving and evolving monuments to human rights violations and ongoing human rights issues, which is inspired by the Civil Rights Memorial in Montgomery, Alabama. So we're doing all sorts of things in very different arenas. We're working with clubs that use Atwood to improve it. We're creating better open lines of transparency between student council and student body, and we're also creating opportunities for clubs to get involved with us as well. So clubs, individuals, and organizations all getting involved with us, which is great.
The final question involved how student council could participate in the Project Playground initiative to improve the playground on the corner of Downing Street. Candidates suggested using the surplus money, as well as working to organize the project as a whole. Elections were held on Link on October 4th and 5th. Candidates were chosen for the Blackstone, Bullock, Dana, Dodd, Johnson, Maywood, Sanford, Wright, first year, junior, senior, minority, houses, and two of the off-campus representatives. Rebecca Sunfist won the seat for first year representative, which was the only contested election. The Hughes Hall sophomore international students and one of the off-campus representative slots were not filled. And now for our Student Council weekly update. The Clark Undergraduate Student Council have been hard at work right out of the gate this semester. Over the past few weeks, the Council has met to discuss issues on the Clark campus as well as the Worcester community as a whole, and heard from numerous student groups who want to help make some of these things a reality. Sustainable Clark spoke up early in the semester, noting some of their achievements in the past and their proposal for Clark Undergraduate Student Council support. The initiative is responsible for reducing Clark's greenhouse gas expenditure, as well as increasing our on-campus recycling average to 27%, just 6 points below the national average and 10 points above last year's recycling average. CUSC contributed to Clark's beautification as well, with a $10,000 allocation to improve Atwood Hall, specifically some of the aging technological aspects of the Daniels Theater. The money will go towards improving the electrical capabilities as well as the stage equipment, reducing some of the safety concerns that have been raised of late about the building. CUSC also elected to allocate funds to a number of activism groups for students to attend various conventions and ultimately bring what they've learned back to the Clark community. Some of the conferences students will be attending include the Millennium Leadership Conference, a Social Entrepreneurship Conference, and the National STAND Conference. Clark Undergraduate Student Council meets every Wednesday at 8 p.m. in the Grace Conference Room of the University Center. Students are invited to attend and see their student government in action. Senior Devin Coleman already has plans to beat the job rush following his graduation. Coleman will be running for Worcester City Council this November. Max Hooley has the full story.
All right, I'm Max Hooley. I'm sitting here with Devin Coleman, Clarkie candidate for Worcester City Council at large. Hello. Thank you for taking the time sitting down with us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So first of all, I guess, who are you? Who is Devin Coleman? Explain who you are to the students.
So I'm Devin Coleman. I was born and raised in New Hampshire, and when the time came to pick a college, I chose Clark, partially because of its character and a very generous financial aid package, but also because my family has a long history in the city. My great-grandfather was a typesetter for the TNG in the 30s and 40s. I've had aunts, uncles, grandparents live here. For whatever reason, my parents went to New Hampshire, and I decided to come back.
Do you want to explain to people actually what the City Council does and what the position that you're running for is actually responsible for, what the responsibilities are?
So the City Council is made up of 11 councilors and the mayor. The mayor is the 11th councilor. The district councilor's responsibilities are slightly different from the at-large. The district councilors handle neighborhood issues, issues of sidewalks, streets, potholes, safety concerns, streetlights, things like that. Of course, they vote on everything. The at-large councilors deal with citywide issues, so taxes, education, public transportation, insurance, health insurance provided by the city for municipal employees, and policy as it pertains to that. So there, like I said, there are 5 at-large councilors, and they all individually represent the whole city, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how that works.
Basically, why do you think you're qualified, and how did your experience at Clark make you feel like you were more qualified to run for city?
I think, I've always been very committed to community service, but I never felt like I was able to do enough. And I've always, from a really young age, like I can't even remember when I started thinking this, that I wanted to be in politics and elected office. And there were stages I went through thinking, the campaign's going to be the most fun. So over time, I came to see the campaign itself as just a vehicle to be able to do the public service that I wanted to do. And I think it was that sort of aha moment when I realized, oh, this is how you're supposed to feel in politics.
Yeah.
The campaign is exciting and I love it and it's fun, and if you don't love it, you can't do it, because we do work 60, 70, 80 hours a week. But the goal is to be a public servant. And if that's not the goal, you should not be doing this.
What do you think are the biggest issues facing Worcester right now, and what would you do about them?
Well, I think the biggest issues right now are it's jobs, it's keeping people in their homes, public safety in certain neighborhoods. Certainly, Clark's neighborhood has a reputation, and we've all seen the timely warnings, and we've all had a friend who has either had something almost happen or had something happen. So public safety, and definitely education in the context of the public schools, and then also education in the context of the universities.
You still must have to battle the perception that you're a student running for a city office.
Yeah, one of the things, I was quoted in Worcester magazine as saying, it doesn't matter how old you are if you know what you're talking about. And I think that's true. And we've gotten that. We've actually gotten that a lot. The phrase I've heard the most, is we need new blood. In order to get on the ballot, you only need 300 signatures. We collected over 1,100, and I was there personally for every one of those signatures. And we did that for two reasons. The first was to show that we were serious. Battle the age question head on in the beginning, but also to show that people are ready for a different face on city council.
Why should students get involved in your campaign, and if they want to, how can they?
I think I'll say the same thing to everybody in the Clark community who's watching this that I said that got my campaign manager on board. And I came up to him and I said, I just came back from a campaign training, I'm running for city council, and I wanted to ask if you were interested in being a part of a history-making campaign. And, would you want to be able to say that you were an integral part in getting the youngest city councilor ever elected to the city council, and 10 years down the road, you can say, I really made a difference in the community, either where I still live or where I went to school, because you helped. And that's it, and we were talking about this off camera. I can't do it alone. I cannot do it alone. There's 180,000 people in the city. We go door to door 8, 10, 12 hours a day sometimes. There's only so many doors you can knock on, and only so many people are home. So what we need is people who are dedicated, even just for 2 or 3 hours a week, who come out and say, I want to be part of my community. Because that's what this is about, is having a stake in the community.
All right, well, thanks for taking your time.
Yeah, of course.
So I
appreciate it.
The full interview with Devin Coleman can be found on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/Clark Cable Network.
With the end of NASA's shuttle program, another nation has entered the space race in force. Last month, China launched the first in what will be a series of space shuttles containing components for a new Chinese space station. The shuttle, called Tiangong-1, or Heavenly Palace, it was followed earlier this week by the first of 3 rockets containing various apparatus for space research. This one in particular, a laboratory. This video, released by the Chinese Space Agency, was a curiosity for space enthusiasts. It shows a computer-generated model of the rocket's launch, as well as rendezvous and docking procedures as they are expected to occur. The curiosity is that it's set to the tune of America the Beautiful. When questioned about this, a representative of China Central Television had no comment. The main concern facing the unmanned shuttles is whether they will be able to properly dock and orbit together. The crafts are traveling at high speeds which were unable to be imitated under lab conditions prior to the launch. If successful, China will be the 3rd country after the United States and Russia to have successfully conducted this maneuver in space. Li Jian, chief engineer with the Chinese Space Agency, said, "After this transfer, we'll begin tests, in particular of the module's experimental equipment, to lay down good foundations for new space scientific experiments." The docking components are Russian-made, which has led to speculation about a possible Russian-Chinese alliance in the space station's future. Though currently the Russian program has its hands full after one unmanned rocket failed in space last month, and the launch of another was delayed. As for a United States representative, Leroy Chiao, a former International Space Station commander and shuttle astronaut, has said that cooperation is the way forward, and that China has the technology, but doesn't have the spaceflight experience that we do. China's space station is set to open in 2020, the same year that the International Space Station is set to close unless its partners agree to extend research funding. Physicists working with a particle detector concealed beneath the Italian countryside recently released some shocking data. Over the past 3 years, the detector has monitored neutrinos accelerated at the European Particle Physics Lab, CERN, with a consistent result. The subatomic neutrinos appear to be traveling faster than the speed of light. If this data is accurate, it could have some very serious repercussions for physicists. After all, modern physics is founded in Einstein's theory of relativity, which states that nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. Antonio Eridiato, a spokesman for the 160-member Opera project, told sources that it's a straightforward time-of-flight measurement. We measure the distance and we measure the time and we take the ratio to get the velocity, just as you learned to do in high school. However, Eridiato went on to say that it is far too early to denounce Einstein's theory. In fact, the scientists working with Opera released their data in the hopes that the larger community of physicists could help explain the phenomena. Indeed, many world-renowned physicists, such as Martin Rees, Steven Weinberg, and Lawrence Krauss, voiced opinions that there is a good chance that the data is a mistake. Weinberg cited that neutrinos are notoriously difficult to observe, and that it is as if someone said that there are fairies on the bottom of their garden, but they can only be seen on dark, foggy nights. Alvaro de Regula, a theorist at CERN, agreed, stating that it looks too big to be true. The correct attitude is to ask oneself what went wrong. If physicists are already taking stabs at... In the scientific community, physicists are already taking stabs at refuting the data laid forth by Opera. Just a week ago, 2 Boston University physicists submitted a paper pointing to evidence that the data could indeed be erroneous due to the neutrino's measured lack of particle radiation. However, this paper was not conclusive, and it can often take months or years for scientists to fully refute or support experimental data. If proven accurate, the data will point to a whole range of physical possibilities previously rendered implausible by Einstein's theory of relativity. Joe Learned, a neutrino physicist from the University of Hawaii, stated that if the Opera data is proven true, it could point to shortcuts through space through extra dimensions. Joe Lycan of Fermilab cited a possibility of a 5th dimension, stating that special relativity only holds in flat space, so it is possible that on warped space the speed of light is different. Whatever the results, the release of Opera's data has certainly spurred a great deal of scientific dispute and excitement.
Debit card users will have something new to think about in coming months. A new law to protect small business owners is causing many banks to cut member benefits as well as introduce new fees, such as a monthly charge for using a debit card. Bank of America is leading the pack in the introduction of debit fees, with a planned $5 monthly charge for using your card. The fees come as a way of cushioning banks against the Durbin Amendment, a last-minute addition to the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act of 2010. The amendment places a cap on the fee a business owner pays to a bank when a customer uses a debit card, limiting fees to 21 cents plus 0.05% of the total transaction, therefore giving incentive for small business owners to allow debit transactions. Bank of America's solution comes in the form of the new debit fee. To cover the revenue lost by the Durbin Amendment, the bank will charge debit card users a $5 fee on months when they use their card to make purchases. Consumers would not be charged for transactions made at an ATM, however. Other banks, such as Chase and Wells Fargo, are testing similar fees in select regions, but have not decided whether or not to roll them out nationally. The fees certainly add up for frequent debit card users. Bank of America's fee accrues a $60 yearly total for those who use their debit cards to make the majority of their purchases. An Associated Press poll reported that 2/3 of consumers spend with debit cards rather than credit cards, which means that 2/3 of the market will be facing this or similar fees. The poll also asked consumers whether or not they would change their payment method if asked to pay a monthly charge, and 66% said that they would. A switch from debit back to credit as the preferred form of payment would mean more profits for credit companies, including Bank of America, which offers a credit option for account holders. Bank of America plans to implement their debit fee to select states in early 2012. The bank has yet to reveal which states will be seeing the fees first.
And that's all the news for this evening's CCN News for You. Have a good evening. I'm Karen O'Donoghue.
And I'm Becca Clark, and thanks for watching.